Welcome to the High Vibration Reset. I'm your host, Ciara Conlon, and the aim of this podcast is to remind you that you always have choice, that you can reset in any moment and change how you think, how you feel, and how you respond. Before we get into the podcast, I wanted to let you know that applications are open once again for the Life Flow Coaching Accelerator. Now we have a new group, fresh energy, and a new opportunity to create and design the life you've always dreamt of. Who's the coaching accelerator for? It's for female leaders, whether that's you, whether you're in an organization or whether you're working for yourself. But it's for women who are looking for more balance, for women who are tired of doing everything for everyone, feeling overwhelmed, maybe close to burnout. And in the accelerator, we work on upgrading your mindset, your energy, and your emotional state so that you can create from a higher vibration. The details are below in the show notes. Now, in this episode, I spoke to Elma Carew, and Elma is a career and well-being coach who helps professionals to gain clarity, confidence, and balance in their work and life. Elma holds qualifications in, wait for it, life coaching, business coaching, career coaching, mental health and well-being coaching, addiction, and relationship coaching, two separate things, along with qualifications in emotional intelligence. Elma is also an experienced workshop facilitator, and she delivers sessions on burnout, resilience, mindfulness at work, digital well-being, and leadership. So let's dive right in to the episode. Welcome, Elma. I'm delighted to finally get to talk to you formally on the podcast. So, Elma, you work with people on careers, relationships, and well-being. So what I'd love to know is which came first and what's your favorite part of your work?
Well, do you know that saying, what you resist persists? When I started out with coaching, I wanted to keep away from careers because my background was HR. And I said, no, I think that's the area I want to stay away from. But actually what I found was, because of my background, that's what was most people were coming to me for. And I loved it, because previously when I was sitting in HR, I couldn't be sitting talking to somebody going, have you considered your options externally? Or have you looked at this job? Or have you considered doing this? Whereas now when I'm talking to somebody where I've no skin in the game, I'm not working for their employer, all that good stuff, you can have more honest, open conversations where you can explore all their options. So I really love the career stuff. And while I'll kind of advertise as kind of career and well-being, the life, the relationships, all of that stuff, you know yourself, you're talking about it all.
Yes.
It's all coming into the one thing. So it's, I do love it all. I do some work then with couples, doing relationship coaching. But predominantly it's career and well-being. That's kind of the bulk of what I do. Yeah.
Very good. And relationship wise as well, it is work relationships you talk about as well, or you coach people on, which is very much interwoven with everything. So
Definitely. Because having a poor relationship with a colleague or a manager can completely change how you're feeling about your job, to the point where you want to leave. Because I would have always said for years, people leave people, they don't leave companies. So, it could be a shift in manager, it could be a shift in personalities, it could be changing your life circumstances. That's a little bit of a prod for you to go, no, can't take this anymore. So the relationship stuff does come into it, not in the way that people think, but it does.
So tell us a bit more about your background and your career transition, how you went from, having the courage to let go of the secure job to become self-employed.
Yeah, so I worked in HR for 20 years. I went into it straight out of college. I loved the kind of employment subjects I was studying in college. like many people sitting doing their leaving cert this year, last year, and every other year, I had no idea what I wanted to do, not a clue. So I wanted to do kind of a general degree that might support a few different options. And HR was the thing. I remember sitting with a Galway businessman when I was about 16 years of age. And he said to me, Elma, do you know now what you need to be looking at is HR? That's where the money's going to be in a few years' time. How wrong he was. But anyway, it certainly wasn't that would bring you into that type of work. It was more the people and dealing with people, which I love. And there was a lot of problem solving and listening and all that lovely stuff. But as the years went on and you were kind of getting more senior, you were getting more strategical and you were getting more administrative, and maybe you weren't the facing person
Touch
anymore.
point.
You know, so it changed with the roles I was in. But I worked in so many different industries, from agriculture to aviation to med device, tech, everything. I was very lucky that way because HR doesn't change. It regardless of the industry, it's the exact same tools. I loved it. But during COVID, I saw a bit of a shift. I saw a shift in people's expectations. I saw a shift in employers. And I found myself, when I was looking at my own values, that a lot of the time I was in private arguing with employers over certain things. And then in public, I had to be the face of this decision that I maybe necessarily didn't agree with. So that was happening more and more. And I was very much somebody that would argue in private and then in public toe the company line. And that takes its toll after a while, you know. So after a particularly difficult couple of years, I said, you know what? I've been working on my business now for a few years. It's time to just hop into it full time and see what happens. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, it was a very challenging couple of years. You still have months where you're just like, oh, Jesus. But even though I haven't a fraction of the income I had when I was working in HR, and that's been bluntly honest, I am incredibly happier. Like the difference is night and day. Like I was losing my hair. I was so stressed out that I got to burnout. And, you know, I don't say that lightly because I understand fully the differences between stress and burnout. I hit burnout and it was just time to make that fundamental change. And I haven't looked back. I'm really lucky. I get to do wellbeing programs with organizations. I do my coaching, my one-to-one coaching, but I've also fallen back in love with HR all over again because I now go into companies as a consultant, an external person, and it's very different when somebody is bringing you in to pay you for advice for a certain particular thing. I have no qualms in challenging if I see something that's unfair or unreasonable and just pointing that out. I never did. I'm not really, what you see is what you get. Um, so it's enjoyable. You know, I can say to somebody, look, this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing. You do what you want. I'm just giving you the advice. You choose what you do with it. And then you just walk away from it and see, you know, but
Yeah.
it has given me, I have fallen back in love with HR, which is fantastic because I had kind of lost the love of it, to be honest with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So that is the career, I suppose, to date. And God only knows where we're going to end up, Ciara, because as we know, tis a long and winding road, isn't it?
It is indeed. We don't know where we're going, but it's not going to be boring, as Bowie says.
I love
Don't
that.
know where we're going from here. But tell me, like, what was that tipping point? So you said you already had a coaching business happening in the background. And was that always the intention? Or did you think you were going to do the two alongside each other? What was
I
that point, Elma, that just, made you take that leap?
I suppose I probably did always hope to do them side by side for security. Financial security would have always been a really big thing for me growing up and throughout my working life. I started working at the age of 13. So I've always had a few bob in my pocket. I've never had to ask anyone for money or rely on anyone for money. And I didn't want that to change. So that would have been a big thing, was to have that kind of guaranteed money. But what I found was I was working in a company I really enjoyed working in. The people I was working with, my manager, the MD, the leadership teams I was working with, they were fantastic. They were lovely human beings. I really enjoyed working with them. The vast majority of the people I was working with, they were just sound, lovely people. But what I was finding was I was trying to almost fit 5 days into 3, and it was starting to really take its toll, to the point where when I was on my days working on my own business, my brain was still back working in the other job, because it was just so busy. They were growing hugely, and they were asking me to go up to 5 days. And I said, no, I cannot. So that was kind of it. They needed somebody to do 5 days. I could not do that. So um, I said, look, I'm going to take the leap and see how I go. And, keep an eye all the time to see if there was another HR part-time role. But thankfully, I've managed to get this far anyway. But we're
Well
still tipping
done.
away. We're still tipping away there.
And the fear element of that, was it just that it felt right at that time, that this was your moment, this was your opportunity? Or were you also battling with fear of having that security moving forward?
Oh, I'd love if my coach that I was working with at the time of this was listening to this, because they'd be like, because obviously as a coach, we're getting our own coaches. I think I spent all of my time in those sessions working through the fear I had around just giving it a chance, and that fear of not having the financial means to continue. I'd do so much internal work on fear. It was huge. It was a huge part of my life for 2023, 2024, doing that work, and just uh, I suppose releasing it to the universe, and if it's meant to be, it'll be. I'm very much that type of way. If this is for me, it won't. It'll work out as it's meant to.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think fear is a huge thing that holds, I was going to say women, but people back in their lives from, creating the lives that they think they could have. How do you, or how did you work through that fear, or how do you help your clients work through that fear when you identify that that is the block?
Well, I can answer that by saying what I did for myself is pretty much the same thing I'd be recommending clients. Because I do feel, particularly with this, when you've lived it, it's a lot easier to kind of talk about it, because you know where they're coming from. You've been there. And for me, one of the big things I found that was really helpful was, and I still have it, I was doing a bit of a clear out there the other day and I found it, is I had my sheet of my kind of confirmation sheet, my positive confirmation sheet of all the success that I've had, the feedback I've gotten over the years, feedback I've gotten from clients about how their lives had changed because of the work that they put in on the back of having coaching. The feedback I got from workshop participants, the stuff that they've learned that they implemented, the feedback I got from HR clients, the feedback I got from colleagues. There was a lot of it there. It took a while to gather it. It wasn't a case of sitting down in one go and writing it all down. But over the course of a few weeks, as I was thinking about it, and then obviously when you start thinking about it, more will come up for you. That kind of stuff definitely helps. And that's what I'd work on with somebody if they're saying, I'm not good enough to progress, or I'm not really able to go for that promotion, or I'm not really, blah, blah, whatever it is. We'll start exactly with that. What's the feedback you've been getting from managers? What have your colleagues been saying to you? What about your customers? What about 10 years ago versus 5 years ago? And we're going all the ways back, because sometimes you do have to go all the ways back. And then you might find some rotten scoundrel who at some stage turned around to you and said, you're never going to be able to do that. Sure, who are you to think that you can do? And then we're locking in on that and we're debunking that. So it's to go into that and see, is there stuff that maybe other people have told you over the years that you've taken on as your own belief, that we now need to cut ties with and reframe and move forward? That's a huge piece. There's a lot of stuff that people tell us, sometimes to protect us, they think they're protecting us by keeping us small, that we need to look back at and say, no, actually, that's crap. I can totally do this.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it, I think.
But that's a great two-pronged strategy there, because you're also getting the evidence of the positive reinforcement and feedback.
So true.
Because, as you know, we focus so much on the one negative comment gets
Yeah.
all the airtime, rather than the 100 positive comments and the 100 people's lives you've changed. So yeah, that sounds like a good exercise to do,
Yeah.
because you're hitting it from both sides, building your confidence. Um, I remember hearing years ago when I had taken a job and as a coach and consultant in in a company, and it wasn't right for me, but I had lost my confidence leaving my self-employed job behind. And I remember hearing the line when I was deciding, should I stay or should I go, was never make a decision based on fear.
Big time.
And that was just life changing, because I realized the only reason I was staying was fear. Okay, right. Let's have a look at this. So it's a good thing to test yourself, isn't it?
Oh, and that's huge. Like that kind of sums up a huge chunk of the work I'm doing with people, because a lot of people that want to leave their job, they're staying because of fear of, what if I can't get this money elsewhere? What if I can't get, I have a nice work-life balance. I do have flexibility. I do have this, I do have that. But then when they weigh it up against the stuff they don't have, the fact that they're keeping themselves small because there isn't room for them to grow in that job. Fear is a huge, you're 100%, that's a great way of putting it. It is keeping you small.
Yeah.
So it is the first port of call with a lot of people when you're working with them.
And it's interesting as well, and that's probably one of the benefits of coaching, is that, unpacking everything and thinking things through, because often I'll see people thinking they're unhappy in a job and thinking they want something else. But actually, when they process everything and give it space, they are actually quite happy and they don't want the alternative that they think they want.
I had an email from a client yesterday saying exactly that. She'd come to me saying,
Wow.
I want to change jobs entirely. By the end of the session, she could see that there was stuff within her area of control that she could change that could actually make the experience a lot more enjoyable. When people come to me and say, I want to change jobs, I'm not sitting there going, right, okay, here's what we need to do now. We're going to do up your CV and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We're getting into the why without saying why. And we're peeling back all those layers to understand what's brought us to that decision, because actually, more often than not, and I don't like saying this to people from the offsite when they're coming to me, because I don't want them to feel like I'm minimizing their experience, but often little mindset shifts can have a huge impact on how we experience our job.
Absolutely. And you as a coach, you're highlighting their ways of thinking, or maybe their, the tricks that sometimes our mind plays on us, or the stories we're creating about things. So yeah, that's great to be able to show that to people, or highlight those things. Elma, you said earlier on, in terms of your own employment experiences, there was often that kind of values mismatch,
Yeah.
and this is something that comes up a lot, I suppose, in coaching people in corporate environments. So how do you help people with that? Do you think it's possible to go beyond that and to be happy in a job where there's a values mismatch?
I think it depends entirely on what that value is, how highly you're holding it, and exactly in what way it's not being met. Because it's a scale, isn't it? It could be something that's just an absolute. You could be somebody that's very kind of into, I don't ever want to have to be somebody that's taking people out of their homes. I never want to work in a role where I'm dealing with people who have no money and I'm trying to get money from them, and then you end up working in a debt collection company. And that's going to be a clear thing with your values. Whereas if it's something else, and it's not that we're lying to ourselves, but if we're reframing it, like from my personal experience, I didn't even really understand what my values were until I did that piece of work to really hone in on what are my top values. And if you'd asked me before I'd done the work what they were, I probably wouldn't have really known, but I'd have probably taken a stab and been completely wrong. Whereas when you actually sit, even with just a list of values, and I often give my clients this list and I'll say, look, if this is something you're unsure of, start with this list and break it down to 3 and see how you feel about it. And when they do that, and then they start looking at their job and they're saying, well, something I really value is flexibility and I've absolutely none. Or something I really value is communication. That's really, really important to me. And my manager is exceptionally poor at communication. Or the people that report into me are exceptionally poor, whichever way it is. And then when you can look at it and say, well, what about this can be changed? You know, could a conversation with this person so that they understand your expectations? Like, what if you start from that point so that they understand what you're expecting? But if it's a fundamental thing that cannot be changed, then it just cannot be changed. But it's to look at what's within our area of control to change, what's not, what can we live with, what can we not.
So you've no regrets?
I have no regrets, thankfully. I mean, if you went back to my 20s, I mean, there was some kind of strange, I know, honestly, there's been no regrets. There has been jobs that I have taken in my life that I probably was sorry I took at the time, but now I can look back and say, well, actually, that job helped me get a mortgage, or that job helped me meet this person that helped me get into this job, or, you know, everything has kind of had its part to play, good or bad. So no, thankfully, not that anything's jumping to mind, no regrets, but especially with regards to going out on my own, because even if next month I turned around and said, yeah, no, this isn't financially viable for me anymore, I need to go and do something else, I have still learned so much, Genie Max, so much, and met so many people. But hopefully it'll continue to keep going and grow with me as I'm growing. So
yeah. And has your quality of life changed since you've become self-employed?
Ciara, girl, it is completely like night and day, like night and day. I did not look after myself at all. I didn't have the time. Again, a story I told myself. But now,
But it's kind of true, isn't it? For a lot of people, there isn't that.
100%.
Yes, there's things we can do, but your time is pretty much laid out.
But also because of the burnout that I was feeling, I couldn't even comprehend the idea of trying to incorporate things into my life or do different things. Just wasn't, there was certain things I always loved getting done. I loved having Reiki. You've your certain things that you love getting done. For some people, that's a massage. Now, for me, it's like, say yesterday was a 2-walk day. I needed to get out twice because my brain was so busy. Another day I mightn't get out at all. Another day I might get out once. But I'm listening to my body and I'm saying, Elma, you're sitting here at your computer and you're overthinking. You have half an hour free. Throw on the wet gear. It's rotten in Galway today, but throw on the wet gear and get out for a walk. And it does help. The way I suppose I'm eating as well changes because I would have been a stress kind of eater. So my body, my actual everything mentally and physically has changed dramatically since September 2023 when I left that job.
So it's given you space, let's say, to have more self-love, more self-care.
100%. And even just with the relationships now that I have formed, you a lot of people link a lot of their identity to their job. And, you know, they could have friendship groups. They're going out on nights out. They're doing everything with their work crew. When you're in HR, you do not tend to do that typically because you have kind of boundaries there. You know, what happened earlier on in my career where you could have been great buddies with somebody and then you might have to go through a disciplinary or something and it's not nice. So you learn to kind of have these boundaries there. Um, but I definitely have found my own tribe, as it were. I know that can be an overused phrase, but other female business owners in particular, that and other people on a similar journey in different businesses and similar businesses, and just being able to talk to people who get it has been game changing. And those conversations are so nourishing. I mean, I met a friend down in Clare there last week, and we sat and drank coffee and talked about feng shui for an hour. I mean, it was just beautiful. Like, and I came home and cleaned the house. And I was like, I need to get this up in order here. But it's like a total different life. It's a completely different life. And mentally, I feel, and emotionally very, very different to the person I was in the best way possible.
So knowing now what you know, how could you go back to that stage that you were at and make it different? What would be the things that would be non-negotiables for you if you were back in that HR career?
Definitely, I think the boundaries that we put in place ourselves. I mean, I was quite good with my timekeeping, and it was a conscious thing because I didn't want to be seen to be staying late because I felt like that set a bad tone. I can't be sitting there with my HR hat on talking about well-being and staying on till 8 o'clock working because that's counterintuitive. Your actions and your words aren't aligning. So what I was doing was I was leaving dead on time, but then I could come home and I might be doing another little bit behind the scenes where people didn't see, or even just the stuff that was living rent free in my brain. Having that end to your day, if you're somebody that ends up carrying it into your evening, having that something, be it that you're going for a walk, movement can be really good. If you don't have the time for that, it can be just writing down, doing a brain dump of what you need to look after tomorrow so that it's not living rent free in your brain. There's certain little things I do now that I wish I was doing back then. One in particular would be like on a Wednesday, which was the end of, I did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, on a Wednesday, that I would just do my brain dump of everything I needed to worry about when I came in on Monday and forget about it. But it just so rarely happened. And I could still get calls on a Thursday or Friday and I would take them because, you know, I had so much time for these people that were calling me and I didn't want to leave them in the lurch. And to be fair, some of them were very time sensitive too. But you put your boundaries in place. Nobody else is going to decide that. People will treat you how you let them. And I'm a big believer in that. So if you're putting your boundaries in place where you're not answering your calls, you're putting down your tools, maybe you're pushing back on your workload and you're saying, I don't have the capacity. Sometimes maybe then you might be given a resource to help you and you'd be thinking this is great, but maybe that person isn't working out as well. And you're almost afraid to kind of address that because you don't want to be bringing more work on yourself. These things where you're trying to just live the easy, quiet life, I would definitely go back and be like, actually, this isn't working. It needs to change. We need to do this differently and not be afraid of, you know, oh God, what are they going to say? Or if they don't like me or whatever, just to get on with it because, you know, a lot of us are working to live. We're not living to work. So it's important that we're.
So you would stop avoiding things, is that, or procrastinating? Is that part of it, on things that need to change or need to be dealt with?
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a coaching session now. That's kind of what you teased out to me there, Ciara. I just realised I think I was doing a bit of avoidance type of stuff.
Yeah.
By the time I got to the end of that question, I was like, or that answer, I was like, oh Jesus, I was doing a lot of avoidance there actually.
Unpacking everything from your head.
Yeah.
Giving it space that we don't always get the chance to think through. And actually, that's another point. You mentioned sitting at the computer overthinking.
Yes.
So it's great that we have the capacity as self-employed business owners to get up from the computer when we, choose to and go out in nature and have a walk. So not everybody can do that.
Yes.
But also, what other techniques do you have that stop that overthinking piece? That
Well,
even
my
help you
number
recognize it's happening?
my number one at the minute, let me introduce you to my old style flip phone. We have gone back to, I hate when I hear people calling them dumb phones because I think they're
Oh, I
actually
never heard that. Yeah.
genius phones. They're genius phones. My smartphone now during the day, because I was doing a lot of content creation, I found I was online more, scrolling more, and that was having a negative impact on my brain. So particularly, and I mean, I deliver digital detox programs. I know the things. I know the things I should be doing, all of that good stuff. And over Christmas, I was definitely a lot less on my phone. Then January was getting closer, which meant I was going to start putting out more content again, which meant I was online more. And I started 2026 feeling not great about myself.
Mm.
And my movement was down because the days are shorter, it's wetter, all the things. So between being on my phone more and moving less, I physically and mentally felt that negatively in my body. So I did always have a little genius phone, as I call it. And it just was it was too small. It was like a little Nokia 3210 or something. And the buttons were so teeny tiny. I was like, it was a little bit frustrating to use. So I said, I want to upgrade. I remember my dad, God rest him, had a Doro phone. And look, this is basically what this is. It's just a pink one.
Can you still buy them?
Yeah. Oh, this has Barbie on it. I mean, look, we don't care. It's beautiful. It's pink. But it's something now that in the morning, my alarm goes off. It gives me the fright of my life because I can't figure out how to change the volume on it. But anyways, but it means that I turn off my alarm and I get up. And what I had been doing, what I had slipped back into doing, I realized was I was picking up my phone and I was starting to scroll. And imagine letting the whole world into your brain when you're not even fully awake. Like logically, it'd say, that's cracked. Who'd do that? We nearly all do that. We pick up our phones and we start scrolling. So now I have my smartphone left somewhere else. I will occasionally check my WhatsApp and that, but my family and friends now know to call me or text me old style, SMS style, if they need me urgently, because I'm not going to be responding as quick on social media or on WhatsApp. So that is currently probably the biggest change I've made. And also just walking again. Like yesterday, my poor dog, I have a little white Maltese doggy and going out when it's lashing rain, it's more work on me because I have to go wash
She's
it.
not impressed.
Oh, the pain. So I went out twice without her yesterday. She's barely even able to look at me today. But I put on my wet gear and I said, I need to go. I'm not a disper and I'm not going to melt when I go outside. So I did that. And even today, I feel a lot better in myself because I slept better. I haven't been on my phone loads. And you can tell, I can string a sentence together. There's times when you could find yourself in a bit of a doom scroll. You're struggling to string a sentence together and your memory and your what did I walk into the room for again? Because our attention span is less than a goldfish now, because of this constant scroll, scroll, scroll. So I'm definitely on my soapbox on that one. Sorry. That's
Well, it is a great message that needs to get back out there because we are ruining our lives and our mental capacity. Our cognitive load is just completely overloaded. And, we think we don't have time, but actually there is so much time in the day. If we could get rid of Netflix at night and phones during the day and at night, we'd all have a massive capacity to reach all these goals that people think they don't have time for.
And the awareness is kind of the place to start. When you put the wellness app on your phone and it tells you how much time you spent, most people don't want to see it. I didn't want to see it when I started using it last year. But now I'm getting the ping and it's like, you've used your phone an hour and a half less. You've used your phone an hour less. And it's like, this is brilliant because rather than it going up the way, it's going down the way. And I'm not missing anything out. I mean, I mightn't be responding to everybody that's engaging with stuff I'm putting up online. That's not the end of the world. The algorithm doesn't like that, but my brain does. So it is what it is. I'll hop on and respond when I can in kind of chunks. But I don't think anybody's too worried if I don't.
So the first step for you is this wellbeing app, or do you think people should just make that drastic change and go to Genius Phone?
Well, for some of them, they don't think they need it, you see. And I mean, I know because I was in this camp, I don't use my phone that much. I don't use
Yeah.
it that much. It's the awareness. It's bringing that awareness into your brain. And then once you can see, it's on iPhones, it's on Android phones, Samsung anyway, where you can just check your usage of apps. So it's already there. You don't have to pay for it or download anything. But it means then that when you start using your Genius phone, which you can get very reasonably cheap, mine was like 45 quid on Amazon.
And it doesn't have to be pink Barbie.
I mean, why not? It's fun. Like, I mean, you're going to see
Why
it in your
not?
handbag. I mean, I end up leaving it everywhere. It's great. Do you ever remember, before you used to always be grabbing your phone when you'd be going doing anything? Now, I mean, I was down cleaning my office over the weekend and I could hear, because she can ring loud, I could hear it. I was like, oh, Jesus, Barbie's somewhere. I had to go run it to my phone. It's, once you're using your Genius phone and you're getting that notification to say you've used your phone an hour less, that's very validating because you're like, okay, this is working. That's an hour of my time. What did I actually use that time for? I can tell you exactly what I used my time for in the last week because, as I said to you, my friend at the Feng Shui put a rocket up me and said, you need to get clearing out now, Elma. So I said, right, so girl. And I did.
Fabulous. So that's how you're using it, decluttering your house, which is also adding to your positive energy.
Absolutely. And something I hadn't the time for. So
we're seeing a pattern here.
So yeah, it's
that's very interesting, the wellbeing app, because now you're getting your dopamine from the app telling you you've gained time rather than the dopamine that we think we're getting from scrolling or from that terrible addiction.
And it's not that I don't want to be on like a soapbox here saying, I've done it, you can all do it. I still scroll. I am still online, but I do it more mindfully now. And I set my phone to go to grayscale at a certain time in the evening. So it's not enjoyable. You have to physically turn it off. And then you're making a really conscious decision that you want to stay scrolling. So there are things you can do. I heard of other people putting in app blockers, or it's probably a different name, but there's something you can put on your phone that stops you being able to use those apps. But they are game changers. These things genuinely are.
Yeah, even within Instagram, I have a limiter for it'll tell me. Now you can turn it off, which I sometimes do, but it's like you say, it's that somebody shining the light. Do you really want to keep going? And then you have to make that decision again, yes or no, based on what you said you wanted to do. So it's it all helps.
Because sometimes that reminder, you go, Jesus, Elma, you've been whatever. It's been half an hour, whatever you've set to. Get off. That can be enough to just cut the scroll. And other times you might say, well, actually, I'm enjoying this, so I'm going to keep going. But you're making the decision consciously.
Yes,
you're aware.
Yeah. As you say, awareness is the first step to any change. But just because we spoke about Instagram there, I'm going to go down this route for a moment. And Elma has a great Instagram presence. What's your Instagram? Is it just your name, Elma?
Elma Carew Coaching. Yeah.
Very good. So check her out. She has quite a humorous side there to some of the posts that she does. But do you find that, so as a business owner, we are encouraged to market ourselves, and it can be one of the biggest sources of stress for small business owners, is this constant putting themselves out there, having the confidence to show up on camera, to sell themselves. You seem to have turned that into something quite creative. Is it something you enjoy now?
It is. When I started making a more conscious effort with my social media, and I heavily invested in training around trying to improve it, I felt a lot of pressure to be creating content every single day and posting it. And it ended up not being terribly authentically me. it was very kind of, here's 3 steps to do this and here's 3 tips to do that. And I wasn't enjoying it, and that was coming across. It was kind of almost mechanical. Whereas now, like some of the stuff that's resonating is the stuff that, like, say, I was speaking to a younger lady around the time Electric Picnic was on, and I remember saying to her, you know, are you going to Electric Picnic? And she was saying, I'm going, I can't wait, it's going to be great. And I was driving home after talking to her, and I was like, she never asked me, was I going? Never asked me, just assumed that I wasn't going. And I went home and I stuck on my camera and I did a video on just that. And that, I think, was the first time I ever did a video that was, and then I was like, and another thing that bothers me. And it was kind of like just a kind of train of thought type of thing. And people resonated with it, and they enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it because it didn't take much energy for me to do it.
Real emotions, real experience. Yeah.
And I suppose on a day-to-day, I do enjoy the lightness. I don't like everything to be super heavy all of the time. It's something I would have had to work on, though, especially when I was moving into coaching, because I would have always used humor to avoid certain things when I was younger. So particularly now in my 20s, you know, if a friend would start getting emotional, or, you know, if something was going on, instead of actually holding space for them, I would have been more the jester and the try and make them laugh and it's all okay and don't cry and blah, blah, blah. And like that has dramatically changed now, obviously, because holding space is the most powerful thing you can do for any human being. And it's a privilege to be able to do that. But now my humor comes out in a different way. Like I will sometimes in a session, if I see somebody's being super serious and hard on themselves, I'd be like, Jesus, I'm glad I'm not in your brain. You're very hard on yourself. And you do kind of sometimes have to kind of just bring in a little bit of lightness, because if it's heavy all the time, you know, it can be a bit overwhelming. I definitely love humor. I enjoy having the crack with people. I don't always like having deep and meaningfuls. I do love deep and meaningfuls, but you have to have the crack too. So it is nice being able to be a little bit more authentic with what I'm putting out, because I'm not having to try so hard. I can just be myself. And some people will look at it and go, no, she's not for me. And other people will go and go, oh, she looks like a bit of crack. Maybe I'll reach out to her.
I go way out of that. You're from Galway. You're for everybody.
Well, we're all Marmite to someone, you know, like, so I'm very open to that.
What is it that you say in Galway? Irish sure.
Irish be grand.
Absolutely. No, I don't think you're Marmite to anybody, Elma. Let's just come back to, let's say that piece at the beginning that we spoke about, that career transition, you know, people being unsure about their next move. What's your advice for people who are in that place? Maybe it is, should they move from one organization to another? Maybe they're thinking about becoming self-employed. Maybe they're thinking about retiring and getting out of it altogether. What's your advice for these people?
I think one of the first things you'd be looking at is probably the fear piece. You know, what is it that's the worst thing that's going to happen here? What are you fearing? What's actually holding you back? But then also, what's kind of driving this decision? And maybe it's not been driven terribly hard, but what's kind of around this idea? Like I've done a lot of work with people who are retiring, and there can be this fear of the unknown, and that's across everything. It's that fear of the unknown, that fear of, what if I look back and the grass was actually greener? And then sometimes you're sitting and saying, well, is this the right decision for you? Is there mindset shifts that could happen that could actually make this a very different situation for you? Because the thing driving the decision to change might be something that's within your area of control to improve. Or it could be that there's a huge downsizing in your company, there's huge leadership changes, your values aren't aligned anymore, you just want to get out of there. Typically, Ciara, though, what I'll say to anybody is, And this goes against what I hear other people saying. You'll see online people saying, if you don't like your job, you need to leave, you need to get out of it. Then that discomfort will force you into finding the right thing and blah, blah, blah. I think that is absolute garbage. People have bills to pay, they have mortgages, they have childcare, they have life stuff. Typically, my rule of thumb is unless it is physically or mentally negatively impacting you, then let it be a rocket under your arse to start looking and find something. But don't let yourself get comfortable again. You need to keep yourself accountable. And how are you going to do that? Maybe it's through coaching. Maybe it's through a friend that's going to keep checking in and go, have you done this, Elma? Have you done it? Have you done it? But if it is physically or mentally starting to take from you, then maybe you do need to step away. Maybe you need to take, a formal break, some type of leave if you want to keep your hand in with the job. There might be different options that you can look at to keep on the payroll, but actually get your break. And then that space might give you the opportunity to get some clarity around what you want to do, because you're kind of taking yourself out of the situation and just giving yourself some space to decide. But there's no one clear path that's right for everybody.
True. But taking the space, do you think that is the key? Is space the key to clarity?
I believe so. I believe if you're really stuck in a situation and you're living it, you're in it every day, sometimes we can make decisions hasty out of desperation rather than having given them thought and really kind of thought them through, looked at our options. People work better with options. And whether you feel like it or not, I can guarantee you right now, you have options. You mightn't be able to see them. And that's where maybe chatting to somebody else might help you be able to see them. But then just giving yourself that space to say, even if it's a weekend where you're just taking time to yourself, you might go to the sea or to the forest or wherever you love being to ground yourself and say, okay, how does this option feel? How does this option feel? Is there anything else I think maybe I could do? That you're allowing yourself to think about it without pressure.
I think sometimes you have to allow yourself to stop thinking about it also, though. Isn't that true in terms of, sometimes it's in that gap where the inspiration comes?
Especially when it comes to burnout, that's essential. Like when I have someone coming to me who's burnt out, and I have had people come and I've had to say to them, from listening to you, I genuinely don't feel you're in the space yet of where you should start exploring this heavily. Maybe go gently with yourself because you're still in the phase where you're trying to build yourself back up. So it is important to listen to your body and understand when you're actually ready to start looking, because it is super time consuming. It can steal from your energy. It can feel a bit draining if you allow it. So to check in with yourself and see how you're feeling throughout your journey.
Because when we get into that overthinking, there's no clarity ever comes, when we're going back and forth from one decision to the next.
Absolutely.
And it's just surrounded by heavy energy and confusion.
And comparison. It's that comparison. Like no more than if there's another small business owner listening to us and they could be saying, "Should listen to them. They've it all figured out. Their businesses, they're flying it." But they don't know that we might be sitting here going, "Geez, I have a bill for insurance. Hopefully, maybe by March I'll have enough to pay." Because you don't get to see everything, and we need to remind ourselves of that. But you do see that a lot with people in work. They're looking at Jimmy over the road and he seems to be flying it, but you're stuck in the same job and you haven't, gone up, and why? So comparison, I know it might sound trite, but it is the thief of joy. Comparing yourself to others socially, on social media, in work.
Absolutely.
As a parent, no parent has it all together, regardless of what they might show. They don't.
Yeah. And the self-employed route is, as you say, 1 month you're flying and you think this is it. And then the next month it's, where am I going to pay these bills? So it's not always, as you say, as it seems.
Definitely.
But yeah, that comparison kind of leads to something very dangerous, and that's the self-judgment piece. which
Definitely.
can be quite damaging, no?
Definitely, yeah.
So to counteract that with some self-compassion and self-love, I think is always a good one. Because no matter what career you're in, no matter what route you've taken, you know, it's fraught with lots of problems and difficulties, and that's kind of part of life. But yeah, so a little bit of compassion there. So overall, Elma, what would you say is the biggest learning you've had from recent years? What, learning that's kind of changed who you are and how much you enjoy life? What would you say that is?
I think it's all well and good being in your comfort zone, but nothing very exciting happens there. So you do have to push yourself into that uncomfortable stretch zone sometimes. And when you start to look back, like when I look back at 2020 and the very first time I even put myself on camera, I was shaken. I was sick. You could hear it in my voice. I was worried what the neighbours would think, what my friends would think, what my husband's friends would think, what everyone would think. Nobody gives a flying fiddler's what you're at. They really don't. They'll watch it. They might be like, oh, look what you're on. And then they'll move on. But for a lot of people, it's taking that initial step. It's just taking that first step, just doing it once and doing it scared. And the next time it won't be as hard. But definitely getting outside your comfort zone and into your stretch zone and doing the stuff that makes you feel a little bit sick. Your heart might be racing, but the reward is a lot better.
Absolutely. And you went from shaking on camera to bringing the camera into the shower with you.
I mean, yes.
I'm just teasing people, so now they definitely have to go to your Instagram and search up that video.
Context is so important. I was sitting delivering training
is.
one day and somebody actually mentioned that to me and I was like, Jesus, will you put some context on that for God's sake? But yeah. I mean, just to say, just to caveat that was there's people that go to the gym with less clothes than what I had on in this video. So no judgment, please.
No judgment, and don't get too excited. Yeah.
Oh God.
No, very good. Look, thank you so much for giving up your time and sharing your wisdom with us, Elma.
Thanks for having me.
I wish you the best of luck in your career. And yeah, there's a lot of lucky people who get to work with you.
And likewise with you, Ciara. I admire all the work you do as well. It's fabulous. So thank you very, very much. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, thanks to everybody listening. Have a wonderful inner day. So thanks for listening in. Make sure you're following Elma on socials. She'll give you a good laugh, but she also has some great content. Her details are below. And as always, please share the podcast with a friend. Follow the podcast if you're not already doing so. And as always, have a wonderful inner day.